Hello and welcome to this month's edition of HiBob MAX, where we're going to be talking about, we've got a slightly different setup this month, so we're doing it in the form of a video podcast with my lovely team. So our topic of today is mission success. What makes a HiBob launch? So to help us dive into this topic today, I've got a very special group of people here. These are my group of HiBob practice team. So by way of an introduction to our audience, I'd love for you to tell us your name and your favourite HiBob module.
Hi, my name is Liv. I'm a HiBob consultant with Silver Cloud, and my favourite module is Call.
Hi, I'm Lenya. I'm a HiBob consultant with Silver Cloud, and my favourite module is Talent.
Hiya, my name is Melanie. I'm a HiBob consultant at Silver Cloud, and my favourite module out of all of them is actually compensation.
Hi, I'm Natasha and I'm a HiBob consultant for Silver Cloud, and my favourite module is probably Call.
Hi, my name's Alistair. I'm a payroll consultant at Silver Cloud. My favourite module is Payroll.
Thank you, team. So I'm really excited to talk to you today about something I think is arguably the most important part of any organisation's HiBob project, and that is launching. So it can have a really huge impact if a HiBob launch doesn't land well, pun intended, as we know down the plan. So without further ado, Mel, I'm going to start with you, if that's okay. What do you think are the top 3 things that contribute to a successful launch of HiBob?
I'd firstly say that one of the very key things is at the very beginning to identify some of your key roles and stakeholders in this project, like who's going to manage this project internally, who's going to be configuring the system, who is responsible for like payroll, reporting, knowledge, and all these kind of little aspects. Because once you identify your kind of key roles, you then know where key responsibility sits. And when you have those clearly defined roles, you're able to make the project progress a little bit more effectively. So that's kind of the first things. Then I would say probably it will be involving different teams into the implementation, because this is not only just a HR project. This is a collaborative project between IT teams, finance teams, payroll teams. So then getting them into the conversation, keeping them involved, that's also like a very key element to a successful launch, to be honest. And then I'd say last but not least, it will be how you communicate that to the business. So it's all about effective change management, getting people excited about the new system, having your little champions that can champion the launch and get people excited about it across the business, but also having people who are part of your pilot launch, people testing it out, really getting back from that experience and finding out how people are finding the system, and making those changes to make a system that will last and will stick with people.
I love that.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And Natasha, we hear this term all the time, MVP, constantly. Most valuable player, obviously. But from a launching perspective, what does that mean to you and to us as a team?
Minimum viable product, yeah. So what is the minimum that you need in your HiBob to launch for day one? So I think, Bob, there's so much amazing stuff that it can do that, you think, right, I want everything done, I want it all done, and actually that can be quite a bit of work, which is where we come in. But you don't actually need to have everything done for day one. You can actually phase your project. So a lot of the clients that we work with will go, right, what do we need for launch? So we need to make sure we've got a ton of policies built in there, and that we've got some key bits built in there that the business needs. But I think it's just working out what is it that your business needs to make sure that it lands well as well. So you don't want it to be a complete skeleton that offers nothing, that doesn't get your business excited. So I think based on your culture and what your organisation would want, what do we need for the MVP? Also thinking about what do we need, but also what can safely come later, essentially. So what's going to be good enough for your business so people get engaged and it lands successfully, but then actually moving on to the next phases, and we can put more on.
Lenya, we obviously see a massive range of all of our projects come in, but launching a core module compared to launching an additional module can be completely different, right? So like talent or compensation that might be intermittently used throughout the tenure of the organisation. How do you think a launch differs between the two?
So that's a great question, because core is generally your big bang. It's actually about changing behaviour rather than anything else. It's really foundational. It's the heart, the beating heart of the system, and then of the company, because it kind of becomes part of that company, part of the HR team. It's really about changing behaviour rather than processes, for example. Yeah, so whereas additional modules like talent or compensation are much more targeted, so you're working with more targeted group of people, so senior managers or the HR team, for example, and the learning and the focus is much more focused on those modules. So you have a slower, more quiet rollout than the core product. So timing is also really different. So with core, you launch it to be part of everything, whereas with the additional modules, it's part of a specific process. So maybe only twice or 3 times a year or something like that. So you really want to launch those closer to the actual process rather than all at once. Overall, it's about building a foundation, really. So I would say, core is your big bang, and then with your additional modules, it's more about that targeted piece, about making sure you have the engagement with the right people, with the right stakeholders in the business.
Thank you.
I've actually got a client that's working on the hiring module at the moment, and actually they want a big bang because they want to evolve their hiring processes and they want to really make a big deal of it across the organisation. So actually they are, as much as most people do, kind of a quieter rollout with the smaller modules. The client was specific. I want a big bang for this one, so that's their choice, right? And I guess
As they should.
Yeah,
Definitely. I guess it
Why
leads
not?
into what Lenny was saying as well about it is a change of behaviour. So that way, because they're intending on change of behaviour, it's the intent behind the launch, right? So it's getting that done for them.
Yeah, I've also worked with clients who did then also want to do a big bang with talent because they've never had that process before.
Yeah.
So then that really is we've got this fantastic
Be
system
loud
to
and
do
proud.
this process. Let's shout about it. So
Engaging people with that vision, right, of what you're doing it for in the first place. Yeah. Liv, if you launch both to the same standard, so either too light or too heavy, what suffers more, an additional module or a core?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so without being too literal, core is literally your core. So if you don't get that right, then that's where you're really going to see the suffering, I guess. If you go in too lightly, you're not going to get people engaged. Just kind of going back to Big Bang, it is the Big Bang, so you want to get people, on board and believing in the system. But then at the same time, you don't want to go too heavy with it as well, because you can risk overcomplicating things, actually almost putting people off in a way. So yeah, it is about getting that balance right. I think what Lenya said as well around your additional modules, they are more forgiving, so you can think be a bit more strategic about how those are launched, whether that's a bit more event-based or user-based, and even not necessarily launching the whole module at one time. With something like talent, you might want to kind of phase it, particularly if it's a new process for people. So starting with performance cycles, bringing in goals, so you can really play around with it.
Yeah. Alistair, our resident payroll expert, how does a payroll launch differ from like a core or additional module that we're dealing with at the moment?
So I think it's important to put kind of pay into context. It's quite an emotive subject. People are expecting to be paid kind of accurately, on time. The measure of success is much more narrow on a payroll implementation. It's either right or it's not. With kind of other modules, you might have the possibility that there might be early adopters. You might tweak it as the user's experience kind of grows. With payroll, you've not got that kind of luxury or that opportunity. You have to get it right first time. Because of that, there's kind of quite a heavy reliance on kind of data validation, governance. There's statutory deadlines, there's cut-offs, there's pay dates. So there's a real emphasis on getting it right first time, because you haven't got you only hear about payroll when it goes wrong, right?
Yeah, I suppose your success measure in a payroll module implementation is you don't hear from anyone.
No,
when
you
they don't
don't
get paid.
Yeah,
exactly,
exactly.
for sure. Amazing. Now back to you. What sort of, I guess coming back to how we can impact a payroll or an implementation for a client, what sort of collateral do we hold at Silver Cloud by means of kind of launch assistance, and what resources does Bob have that really help with this?
I think at Silver Cloud, the value that we add to an implementation project is obviously we've done so many of them. We've seen so many clients and how they approach things, so many different scenarios. So from our perspective, from consultancy side of things, we're able to advise on best practice, how to do something like to make the most impact. But also I would say we have a variety of internal resources that we've built ourselves on top of the plenty of others that exist already from HiBob, but to support our clients with step by step, by having like very detailed project plan, a very resources that are really relevant to what they're doing at that point in time. So we just have that intranet with information available to them based on what they're implementing, without overwhelming them with information. But also HiBob altogether, I think one of the things that I've loved about HiBob, not only in my current role, but when I was a HiBob client myself, was just the variety of HiBob support pages, the training village, all these resources that the system provides. Bob AI, where you can just go ahead and ask a question, and this could be anything about how the system works, how you would build something. It would give you a step-by-step with links to articles on how to find it. So I think when it comes to combination with the existing support from Bob already, plus the knowledge we have and the targeted resources we have, that's kind of the value we add for clients.
Yeah. And encouraging that self-service, right? Like as the HR team, you're launching a system, but really you want people to be using that for themselves rather than relying on you. You've brought in Bob as your kind of another person for the HR team, so actually you want them to be using Bob to find the answers to their questions too.
Yeah, because it's not only about going live with the system, it's about having the resources and knowledge on how you can build it further. Because with Bob, it's not you built it once and that's it. It's like a continuous, an even never-ending journey that you will keep building down the line as well.
Yeah. Alistair, having shadowed a number of our core projects to enhance your own payroll implementations, because as we know, there's lots of dependencies. Is there any advice that you can give to clients who are just about to launch? And is there anything that we do as a business that I guess helps with a client launch?
I think obviously it's important to understand obviously why you bought the technology. When you're launching, you need to have made sure you've nailed down your must-haves versus your would-like-to-haves. Again, businesses don't be afraid to kind of shout about the positive impacts that are going to come from the change. It'll help your staff who are going through the change. If they're anxious or nervous about what's coming, emphasise the benefits to your staff. Yeah, there'll be a number of things that we can do. We can review kind of your processes and your working kind of practices that are in, and see if they're as efficient as they can be, or whether we can tweak something here or there. Payroll specific, we will be able to go over the dependencies that are needed between your core and your payroll module, so that we can get it working as efficiently and as accurately as possible. One thing we can help as well is with future proofing, so we know or we've got knowledge of some of the roadmap that's coming from Bob, so we can help clients maybe future proof processes, ways of working, knowing what's coming.
The insider secrets before they launch, right?
Yes.
Love that. Amazing. So we know I love a pun. And one of my clients who was an airport thought about their launch with like a Bob is landing, which I thought was really cool. So they had like all merch, notebooks, cakes and apples, and they teamed it with like everything that they had was like an aeroplane, and like Bob is landing, which is really cool. I love this touch. We've obviously seen so many people launching now over your time with us. Can you each give me a way that you've seen an organisation launch Bob that you enjoyed and that you'd want to share with our audience? Now we'll start with you.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the most definitely interesting and impactful implementations I've been a part of is for one of the largest festival and events companies across Europe and Australia, with around 80 festivals managing across the globe, multiple entities working in multiple companies, subsidiaries, very complex structure. So one of the really interesting things in terms of approach to the Bob implementation was the phased approach of we're going to implement, for example, the first targeted markets would be the UK, Spain and Netherlands, then we move on to other markets, and we're having this sort of phased approach where we focus on each, because it's consolidating all these different countries and these different entities into one system, into HiBob. So it was really impactful, that change management, but also really impactful to see all those HR teams that were very secluded in their own bubbles working together make a system work. They were getting ideas from each other on how to build things, processes that didn't exist for them before. It used as a great inspiration for them to draw from each other on how we can build a probation process. For example, we built one probation process for the UK, and the HR manager in Spain would say, I love that, I'd like to use the same approach for Spain. So it's just that collaborative process, and having teams that would have never run paths before because they kind of do their own thing, come together and do this implementation and use the system as one.
Nice,
Yeah.
amazing. And did you see that your training to each of the different entities and countries differed because of the different processes that were around them?
It differed. There was a lot of processes that we had to build differently, but there were also some processes that were non-existent before, but now they exist because we have the system to accommodate it. So it was a very big mix of making obviously very target specific for that site approach, but sometimes if it's an approach that can be utilized, on a global scale for all entities, why not unify it, unify the process?
Easy to hit that duplicate button.
Yeah,
Love it.
exactly so.
Natasha, how about you?
Yeah, so obviously work with lots of different clients who do it in different ways. So I guess the key thing to highlight is that it needs to be right for your business. So I've got recently worked with the clients. There were 2 organisations that were coming together. So they did a lot of workshops. So it was actually face-to-face, hands-on, that sort of stuff. I've got some organisations that were remote. So actually a lot of it was creating short, snappy videos with a little bit. They created their own sort of cheat sheets and stuff like that, using the Bob resources to do that rather than kind of reinventing the wheel. I guess the most creative stuff I saw was a well-known online retailer. When they launched, they did a famous Bobs, so a bit like a Where's Wally, but Where's Bobs, in various different comms that they were doing or various things across the business. There was a build-up of anticipation of kind of launch day before Bob went live, which I thought was quite funny. So how many famous Bobs are there? They thought of loads, which was quite impressive. So that, and then just to add to that, the naming, HiBob naming. So actually, it doesn't need to be called HiBob in your business. You can take him on as your own, adopt him and give him a new name. So having a naming competition can really drive engagement as well.
Yeah, I love that. That's a really good idea. Great one. Amazing. Liv, how have you seen your clients launch?
Yeah, so I think I've seen a lot of clients, they'll typically set up a Bob email address. So then that's kind of centralising all of their queries and things coming in from employees. And actually one thing I've seen, typically, before launch, we want to get it right, make sure the system's, in a good place. But actually, they encourage their employees to say, if you do see something that isn't quite right or isn't what you'd expect, email in, let us know. And anyone that emails in will get put in a draw for a prize. So they've kind of taken, capturing maybe things that, anything that isn't right and turning it on its head and getting employees looking around the system, and also enables them to kind of spot anything that might have been missed as well.
I love that.
Yeah, that's a really cool idea. I love that.
Yeah.
Amazing. Lenya, how about you?
Well, similarly to what Mel was saying, I've seen lots of clients do that phased launch, which works really well when you've got offices in different countries or different places, because then it allows them to have a little bit more control, so that they're not inundated with queries all at once if something is maybe not quite right. But the most creative and most fun idea I saw is I worked with a games company, and they hid a fake profile in the system, and they gave it a funny name. And so it was like a scavenger hunt for the employees to then get used to the system, search for that person, find out what their site is, and enter a draw for a prize. So that was the most fun launch idea that I'd seen. And also I did see the Where's Wally or Where's Bob's as well. I've seen that done too. That was a great deal of fun. So yeah, I think clients do really have a lot of fun with it. It's not just this is a business system, off you go.
Yeah, and you can lean into the training element of that by adding in, go and find how to, or go and book a day's holiday, or go and, update your DE&I info and things like that to get people using the system.
Almost like gamification.
Yeah, exactly. And I think then that gets people really engaged with the vision. I suppose after launch, you're ready, you're raring, it's in the business and embedded. It's really easy to jump into BAU to Bob, isn't it? And because Bob just becomes part of the team, are the processes working for you? I guess it's really important to ensure that you are, you know, performance reviewing Bob in the same way that you would your normal internal employees? Are the processes working with you? Are there any updates that have happened? Because I think I say it all the time, you're constantly tinkering with Bob, aren't you? And I think that's really important to remember, that once he's there, he's not just there. So I guess, yeah, it's important to check in on Bob in the same way you would with your employees. So once you're launched, the mission is far from over. Amazing. Thank you so much for your input today, team. It's been really interesting to hear your perspectives and coming together on how we can further support our clients with their launches. But if our clients or viewers are interested in HiBob as a HRIS and you're a current user and interested in optimising your current HiBob platform, please do reach out. We'd love to chat to you, all of us, everyone, and about how we can help with you. But we'll leave a link in the comment section below. Thank you so much.